As I was sharing with all of you that we'll be talking to Mr. Stephen Del Duca, leader of Liberal Party of Ontario. So housing pricing is the biggest issue at this time, particularly in our GTA area. So new immigrants who are coming here, or particularly the first-time home buyers, they are having a big challenge to buy their house. So it is almost going impossible for them, unaffordable for them to buy even any small property. So federal government is considering, opposition conservative parties raising this issue again and again. This was a big issue during the last federal election also. But we have not seen much relief for this category of new immigrants, or particularly our young children, the first time home buyers. So Mr. Doug Ford has announced a policy increasing the speculation tax on the foreign investors. But many people are thinking that this is not enough. So what we have to do to fix this big issue, to find some solutions, leader of the Liberal Party of Ontario, Mr. Stephen Del Duca, has given some good suggestions. So we are going to talk to him. What is his opinion on this issue? Mr. Duca, first of all, welcome to Radio Pravasi and good morning.
Well, it's great to be back on with you. Thanks so much, Mr. Saini, for having me on the program this morning.
Yeah, so we understand that during the last 10 years, price has been 3 times average in Canada as a whole, if we say, in the country. But here in GT area particularly, I mean, after every 2 or 3 years, the price is doubling. So we can see that average house price is going more than $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. Even if you're looking for a condominium, what to talk of for townhouse or semi-detached. So our young children, who are the first-time home buyers, and who our people who are coming here in this country as new immigrants, it is looking impossible for them to afford their house now.
It is so true. You've heard me say this on your program before. My wife and I are raising 2 daughters. Our older daughter is almost 15. Our younger daughter is almost 11. And we think about their future. We think about where will they live? Where will they be able to afford to buy, or frankly, even to rent? And the situation right now is really of grave concern to families right across the GTA and right across Ontario. I think yesterday, with the Ford Conservatives announcing what really is their 4th housing plan in 4 years, I think it was really discouraging to see that they're not making an honest effort to actually confront the challenge. So, for example, in their plan yesterday, there's nothing in there for first-time home buyers. There's nothing in their plan to help support tenants who are dealing with rents that are skyrocketing out of control. There's nothing in there to deal with those individuals who, through no fault of their own, need support from a truly affordable housing. And I think that's really disappointing, especially since you consider that over the past 4 years, since the Ford Conservatives were first elected, the average price of a home in Ontario has climbed by $500,000. And as you said a second ago, the average price of a home for the first time ever in Ontario is now over $1 million. All of that happened on Doug Ford's watch. And instead of coming up with a real plan, after all of the talk and all of the meetings that he's had, he came out with something yesterday that was very weak and just won't get the job done.
Okay, I have talked to many people who are in the real estate industry. They're telling me that the biggest challenge is the construction of houses also. It's all demand and supply. So Doug Ford government is promising 1.5 million houses in next 10 years. And people are telling me it's really challenging. They're not confident that this can happen. So the biggest challenge right now, where the prices are rising, we don't have enough houses, and we are at the lowest number in the G7 countries as far as the new houses are available every year.
Yeah, it's 100% true. I mean, it's interesting to me that the Ford Conservatives decided to just pick a number randomly of 1.5 million new homes over the next 10 years, but there's nothing in their plan that will actually help us get to that number. That's the problem. So we all know an election is coming, and we all know that politicians like to come up with big fancy slogans and big numbers to try to make voters believe that they've got an idea about how to solve the problem, in this case, the housing crisis. But when you say you're going to deliver something and then you have a plan that is weak, that is not actually going to be strong enough to deliver on that plan, it really hurts your credibility. Doug Ford has no credibility on this issue because on his watch, house prices have climbed by $500,000 over the last 4 years. Again, there's nothing in the plan that he released yesterday that's going to help first-time home buyers. There's nothing in there that's going to help someone who's renting in this province. And don't forget, when Doug Ford first came to office 4 years ago, one of the first things that he did was to scrap and get rid of all of the protections for tenants in this province. So that tells you everything you need to know about Doug Ford's priorities. He would much rather focus on the people who are already rich in this province, and he wants to make them richer, but that does nothing for my daughters. It does nothing for your audience, Mr. Saini. Ontario Liberals are working on a plan. We're going to be releasing it over the next number of weeks before the election campaign or during the election campaign. And our plan will have real ideas that will deliver short-term relief and long-term supply in order to deal with the housing crisis.
Okay, another big challenge is the red tapeism. Many people are saying that they are not getting zoning approvals. There are so many hurdles to build the houses. But on the other hand side, people are complaining that in this demand and supply issue, builders are trying to abuse the system. They are trying to rip off the people, and now they are telling you, look guys, we don't know when we can increase the price again and again. So, I mean, and poor people, they are really in problem now.
Yeah, listen, I think there's always room for us to improve how we deal with the approvals process, to work with our municipal partners closely, instead of what Doug Ford is doing right now, by the way. He's not trying to work with municipalities or partner with them. He's trying to attack them. He's trying to actually pass off the blame to a different level of government, instead of working in collaboration with them to help strengthen the approvals process, but also speed it up a little bit. And to me, that's the wrong kind of leadership. The fact of the matter is, Doug Ford has been premier. He's been in charge for 4 full years. And even though house prices were already a challenge back in 2018, he's waited until the last few weeks before an election campaign to come out with a plan to make your audience believe he cares. But if Doug Ford really cared, then he wouldn't have scrapped rent control back in 2018. He wouldn't have made it harder for people to be able to afford, for example, rent. He wouldn't have stripped away a lot of the other protections that people need in their lives to support themselves economically. He doesn't care about this issue. He just wants to show right before an election campaign that he's got a plan, but his plan is weak, and it's going to do nothing to make life more affordable for my kids as they grow up, or for your audience as well, Mr. Saini.
Okay, my last question is, before you go, Mr. Duka, many people are thinking that putting this kind of tax on foreign investors is going to solve the problem. It's a very fractional issue if we see as a whole this problem. So now, what are your suggestions or your plan to deal with this situation?
Well, as I said a second ago, our team is working really hard, including our candidates, and we have fantastic candidates running in Brampton, Mississauga, right across the province. Our team is working really hard to put together the final touches on our housing plan. We're going to be releasing it over the next number of weeks. I'm really excited about it because it is bold and it's innovative, and it will actually have real ideas that will help in the short term, but also make sure that we help in the mid and long term. This is something that's really important to me personally. As a dad with young kids growing up in this province, they should be able to afford to have shelter, to have a home. It is part of the Ontario dream, the Canadian dream, and Ontario Liberals will work hard to make sure that we can achieve it together.
Okay, so 5 points Mr. Duka has raised for the Conservative government. First is that there is no help for the first-time home buyers. Second, no investment in the affordable housing, no rent control, no zoning reforms, and he's saying no taxes on developers who are sitting on the lands. So there is enough land available. Many people are just waiting to rise the prices. Of course, they want their profit, But this is really something now getting out of hand. Mr. Duka, thank you so much. But one last thing I would say, that there is no coordination between the federal government and the provincial governments also. Federal government has a very ambitious plan to bring more than 400,000, 450,000 immigrants every year. But where is the accommodation for them?
Yeah, it's a very good point. But, you know, a second ago I talked about the need for the different levels of government to work closely together. That's something that I think is it's really important to me. It's really important to Ontario Liberals that we do work in partnership with the other levels of government. So our municipal partners on the housing crisis, our federal partners on immigration and immigration settlement matters. When all three levels are working closely together, very openly and very constructively, that's how we get real things done, good things done, progress for the people of Ontario. And that's the way that I will lead this province should I become Premier on June 2nd.
Okay, Mr. Duka, thank you so much. We will wait for your platform when you will announce. We will talk to you then again.
Sounds great. Thanks, Mr. Saini. You take care.
Thank you, Mr. Duka. Thank you. Yes, and Mr. Stephen Del Duca, leader of Liberal Party Ontario, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਵਾਰ ਘਰ ਖਰੀਦਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੋਕ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਡਗ ਫੋਰਡ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਪਲਾਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਉਹਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਰਿਲੀਫ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ ਫਸਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੋਮ ਬਾਇਰਸ ਨੂੰ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਆਪਣਾ ਇਹ ਡ੍ਰੀਮ ਪੂਰਾ ਕਰ ਪਾਉਣਗੇ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੀ ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਫੋਰਡੇਬਲ ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕਿ ਮੇਨਲੀ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕਰਦੀ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਸਮੇਂ ਸਿਰ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟਸ। ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਵੀ ਆ ਕੇ ਗਏ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਜਿਹੀ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਅਹਿਮਦ ਹੁਸੈਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਆਫ ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਮੇਂ ਸਿਰ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ। ਪਰ ਸਵਾਲ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਅਫੋਰਡੇਬਲ ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਲਈ ਕੀ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਤੀਜਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਰੈਂਟ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ, ਰੈਂਟ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਰੈਂਟ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਐਕਟ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਡਿਮੋਲਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਚੌਥਾ ਹੈ ਨੋ ਜ਼ੋਨਿੰਗ ਰਿਫਾਰਮਸ, तो जिस किसी भी जोनिंग चेंज की जानी चाहिए है ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਬਹੁਤੀ ਤਬਦੀਲੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ। ਤੇ ਪੰਜਵਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਲੈਂਡ ਲੈ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਜਸਟ ਵੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਕਦੋਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਵਧਣ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਘਰ ਬਣਾਈਏ। ਲੈਂਡ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਘਰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਅਪਰੂਵਲ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਦੇ ਡੋਂਟ ਕੰਸਟਰਕਟ ਦਾ ਹਾਊਸ, ਦੇ ਡੋਂਟ ਬਿਲਡ ਦਾ ਹਾਊਸ। ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ontario ਕਦੋਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕਰੇਗੀ ਔਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਕੁਝ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਦੋਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹੋ ਰੇਡੀਓ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਸੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।